Man, that's a little loud for someone who didn't go to Arizona State. It's a little much, but
and I
Chris Karpman joins us now. I know, Chris, you're breathing a little bit better now. You get a little bit of break now. All this noise is kind of quiet down a little bit.
Yeah, finally catching our breath a little bit out here. There's still practices to cover pretty much every day, and recruiting news happening. So it's definitely never going to be slow this time of year, but not breakneck pace that we went through last week.
So we broke down a bunch of clips from the impromptu deal the other day with Ray and Dr. Crow, and I'm curious because you've been following this pretty closely. Do you believe when Dr. Crow says that ASU and U of A were always hooked together?
Definitely not entirely, no. If you look at the timeline of the reporting, Thursday night, after the Arizona Board of Regents meeting, the Big 12 voted to accept Arizona into its conference, and Michael Crow said that he didn't consider the Big 12 until after two of the conference's presidents in the Pac-12 didn't show up for their 7 a.m. meeting the next day and didn't meet with them until 10:30 that day. So if they were both in lockstep, why was Arizona already pursuing moving to the Big 12, and why was the Big 12 already voting to approve Arizona? And so that doesn't really mesh in terms of the timeline. And everything that I heard prior to that indicated pretty strongly that Michael Crow was trying to hold the conference together, but coming to the realization over a few days, last Wednesday, Thursday especially, that it wasn't probably going to happen and they were going to have to move.
Chris, he talked about the viability once Oregon and Washington were looking to move on to the Big Ten, that he's pretty much, forced to make the move. If Oregon and Washington sit tight, knowing that they're going to bet on the come with this whole Apple Media situation, potential, as we say, do you think he might have held out? I know it's kind of a hypothetical question, but do you think he might have held out to buy into the digitization of the Pac-12?
That is the $64,000 question, and that's something that I don't think we're going to get a straight answer to because they never had to go down that path. But there's no doubt that Arizona and ASU were not really on the same page. All of the reporting that came out of Arizona with people that definitely knew what was going on was that Arizona was very aggressively pursuing the move to the Big 12, felt strongly about it. Michael Crow wanted to keep as much as he possibly could the Pac-12 together, which really that's always been, as he quite candidly acknowledged, that's always been what his agenda was. But you lose Colorado, then maybe if Arizona and ASU end up splitting up, it probably wouldn't have been that plausible anyways for it to happen. I think that Crow benefited very much by not having to necessarily make that call or take a dispute between ASU and Arizona to a heightened state because of what happened with Oregon and Washington.
Are you saying basically then that the Board of Regents said this is the way it's going to go and you're going to go this way?
I wouldn't go that far. I don't know that it came to that. I think it may have, if not for the Oregon and Washington departures. But the Board of Regents clearly wanted the schools to move together. And my understanding is that they believed that Arizona's positioning on the matter was the proper positioning. So the Board of Regents wanted the schools to move. Michael Crow has a lot of power in the state, and had he firmly dug his heels in, I don't exactly know what would have happened.
Chris, I want to get your take also on just the vibe overall. Do you believe that this is being supported pretty heavily by the student athletes? Any that you've talked to there at Arizona State?
We haven't talked to a lot of student athletes. I don't know that I have a representative sampling of the team.
Okay.
But the ones that we have talked to, they, a number of them are from, Texas or the Big 12 kind of footprint. Jalen Conyers, their star tight end. He's from Texas. He was talking about it. We know that ASU's been recruiting more aggressively in Texas under Kenny Dillingham. So a lot of the up next class and the people beyond that seem very excited. Players ultimately they like to just they go out there and take on whoever they're playing against, and it's a pretty sterile environment for them with travel and some of these other things from a football standpoint. There's been a lot of talk about, you need to go to these far-flung places like Morgantown or UCF or Cincinnati, but ASU is probably only going to end up making those trips once every 3 or 4 years, and I don't think that there's that much consternation that I've seen from players.
It's funny because Kenny Dillingham, when you listen to his comments, he's excited about to have all eyes.
When is he not excited?
Well, but he's
always excited.
He's jacked up, and I think you said it, Chris, with the recruiting side of things. And then Eyeball's able to watch ASU in all time zones. So for Kenny, who's making 87 texts a day before practice and 25 phone calls during this open period, he's kind of like a kid in a candy store to have that exposure for the Sun Devils.
And it's a little bit fortuitous. He built his staff to recruit Texas. Rashad Samples, Brian Carrington, 2 of the top recruiters are from Dallas and Houston, respectively. And so those guys are going to be able to sell to recruits that they're going to be getting more games that are played in their home state and in their region as part of this conference. Also, part of the reason that I'm sure Dillingham's excited is because the commitment, the financial commitment to resource the football programs in the Big 12 they're very serious. I mean, it's a higher echelon in a lot of respects. Part of that is even though the operating budgets are comparable to a lot of schools in the Big 12 versus the Pac-12, they have far fewer sports. Like, for example, Oklahoma State is similar revenue, 16 sports, ASU has 26 sports. So that means that those schools are dedicating a lot more resources to football, and Kenny Dillingham is very aware of this. And the internal dynamic of what happens at ASU, I think, is going to reflect a desire to try to increase a lot of their, not on the field staffing, but off the field staffing and